We extend our emotions into all these things like tentacles. Like tentacles, we extend our emotional attachment into our job, our social circle, our hobbies, our relationships, our accomplishments, our achievements, our belief systems, knowledge, in being right. I am right. I'm correct. I've got the things. I've got the truths. I'm right. And we're emotionally invested in these things. Like these tentacles are all extending from us and wrapped around all these things. And our group affiliations, our skills, our belongings, our music, reputation, preferences, our politics, our nationality, debates, sports team, etc. All these things. So these emotional attachments, they constitute our identity, which is what we refer to when we say ego. Okay? When we say ego, we're talking about all these emotional tentacles all stuck out and wrapped around all these concepts and things. We're not talking about arrogance and conceit. We're talking about this. Now, we think these things are enriching. We think they are enriching, right? But it is only in the reeling in of these emotional attachments. Like, take those tentacles of emotion, unwrap them from all those things, and reel them back in, and just be you. Okay? We think these things are enriching, but it's only in the reeling in of these emotional attachments and those tentacles, in the emotional and identity, in the emotional and identity divestiture from all the things around which these tentacles are wrapped, that we can be in the richness of the authentic self. Okay? So it's a divestiture. We're divesting our identity from these things. We're divesting our emotional attachment from all these things. All the things. Pull it back. Reel them back in. Revelation 3:17 through 18 over here on the right-hand side says, "Because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked." Okay? You don't realize that you are none of those things. You're nothing. You really are nothing. And I'm not like talking down. I'm saying that in a good way. "I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. Like Job says, I shall come forth as gold." 1 Corinthians 3, talking about gold coming through the fire. "That thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eyesalve, that thou mayest see." What happened there? So instead of trying to be all these things, okay, clothe yourself with your authentic self. And when people today, in today's world, they get I'm going to use this term here called S prime, with the thing that I'm highlighting in the middle there. And S prime is a term that Fowler uses in Stages of Faith, and it really is your concept of what you think other people think of you, okay? What you think other people think of you. So many people think that happiness is when things are going well in all these areas in which they're emotionally invested, right? Now, it's interesting, if you get counsel from me in your personal life, you're going to get conflicting guidance from me that sounds contradictory. And it would take wisdom to see through this, because here I am in this video telling you that poor in spirit means to be emotionally divested from all these things. But if I'm talking to you and I'm counseling you in your life because you have some kind of problem, what I'm going to tell you is that these all serve as little platforms of wellness, and they need to be in good shape. So your family needs to be in good shape, your church life needs to be in good shape, your home needs to be in good shape, your job, your occupation, your social life. If these things start to crumble, you as a person will start to lose your way, and they start to bleed over into each other. Like if your marriage isn't going well, it's probably just a matter of time before you stop performing at your job very well. And it's probably also going to affect your spiritual life. So now you've got 3 pillars of your life that are messed up, and then you're not relating to your friends like you should, so now there's another pillar. So these things kind of, they mix around. So in one sense, and this is the balance that you have to find the middle way, where you keep these things in good shape, You invest your time and energy in them and care for the sake of, you got to keep yourself, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help somebody else. So you do need to have yourself squared away in the society in which we live. But at the same time, you need to realize that those things aren't your identity and be emotionally reeled back in so that you're not confusing those things with who you are. Because you are not those things. But you need to make sure those things go well. So there's this balance, there's this paradoxical balance where in one sense, to be poor in spirit, you need to be divested from this. That's why when it's easier to do this if you join a monastery and take a vow, you actually spend some time. Some people like to go spend a year in a monastery so that they can spend a year and know what it's like to not actually have all this stuff. And then when you come out and you start reestablishing yourself, you can bring with you the sense of not having them and not being identified with them as you reacquire the things that you use to interact in this society. So something like that can be good, can be helpful, so that to give you a clear break experientially, participatorily, the 4 kinds of knowing, on what role these play in your life and whether or not you really need them, because now you know that you can live without them. So you know not to be emotionally attached. And if I have to go back, and people say the world is your monastery, the idea from a stint, not a lifelong vow necessarily, but people who do a stint in a monastery for 1, 2, or 3 years, they use that as a mindset, and then after that, the world is your monastery. So you keep that monastic mindset of maintaining that identity poverty, where your identity isn't invested in all these things. And today we're all crazy. We got people running around saying, "Well, I identify as, some kind of gender that is not their biological sex," that kind of thing. And then on the other side, "Well, this is your you're a man." But on both sides of this issue, people are they're confusing their identity. Your body is not who you are. Okay, Jesus says in heaven they are neither married nor given in marriage, but are as the angels in heaven. Your body is not who you are. Your identity is your gender is not who you are. Your sexuality is not who you are. None of those things are who you are. So when people are arguing on both sides of this issue, they're both emotionally invested in things that are not them. And I identify as blah. Okay, you just told me you have an egoic attachment to a particular S prime that you just invented in your head. That's your business. That's going on in your head. I know that's not you. On either side of it, whether you're, straight, gay, cis, LGBTQ, or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're not any of those things. Nobody is. Nobody is any of those things. That's not your identity. Many people think that happiness is when things are going well in all these areas in which we are emotionally invested. Like, oh, I got all the money, I have the car I want, I got the hot wife, got all the things. These emotional investments constitute one's identity, and it feels secure when they're all stable. Many of these areas can appear to do well on the surface with ample application of money. Think, oh, if I have a bunch of money, that'll clear all this stuff up. It just shows you're still emotionally attached to it. If you think money's doing the thing, it's not. However, this usually is just a band-aid. That's why Jesus said that a rich man can hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven in Matthew 19:23. That's why Paul says that the love of money is the root of all evil. What you really need to do is divest your egoic attachments from these things. What you're trying to do is get unlabeled potential. That's what money is unlabeled potential. Trying to get unlabeled potential so that you can bring more security to your egoic identity attachments, because you're attached to these things and you see them as your identity. And having more money would stabilize your identity. That's how your subconscious and your body is feeling the need for money. It's an identity stabilizer. That's how it feels it. So being poor in spirit includes an emotional divestiture from all these things to which we are usually attached. This includes a divestiture from the S prime, or how we perceive others to think of ourself. Like I would think, how do other people view Kevin? And I have this construct in my mind of what I think they think about me. And then I can be emotionally attached to that and invest my identity in that concept. That's not real. Nothing that you think is real. Everything that's real is nothing that you think. And you get to separate those two. Realize that. All of these things shield us from the self that we really are. Pop culture's concept of the authentic self is someone who is unapologetically pursuing all of their preferences and proclivities in all these areas. Well, I'm being who I really am. I like to listen to country music and rap and heavy metal. That's who I am. And they think that's being your authentic self. But no, that's not what we mean by authentic self. What we mean by authentic self is you are none of those things. Whatever is left over after you remove all the things that how you conceive yourself, what you think your identity is, remove all that. You aren't those things. So pop culture's concept of the authentic self is someone who is unapologetically pursuing all of their preferences and proclivities in these areas. Like, oh, if I can buy the car that I want to buy, I can have the gender and sexuality that I want to have, I can wear it loud and proud, and that's my authentic self. That's not what we mean by authentic self at all. Okay? The real authentic self is the you that you were as a child before you were enculturated into all these egoic identity attachments. That's your authentic self, which is why Jesus says in Matthew 18:3, "Verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven."